Victoria. I hope you're doing well. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant today, if that's okay. I'm going to talk about genre, expectation, and convention, and I'm going to use the popular band One Direction as my example for my point. So you've probably noticed that I've been on a bit of a One Direction binge lately. Up until a few weeks ago, I was pretty indifferent about One Direction. I didn't love them, I didn't hate them, I didn't really care either way. But then it all changed when I watched an episode of SNL where they were the musical guests, and I actually really liked their set and was pretty impressed with their performance overall. So I ended up watching their entire season of The X Factor that they were on, where they were amazing and they placed third in the overall competition. From there, I went on to watch their concert tour movie, and I listened to most of their songs, and I liked quite a few of them. I'm not at a point where I consider myself a Directioner or even a big fan, but I do enjoy a lot of their music. However, I received immediate backlash when I started to tell people this. People started giving me all these reasons for why I should hate them and saying things like, they don't even write their own songs.
Girls only like them because they're cute.
They don't sing about anything important or deep. To which I responded to all of these points, well, duh. What were you really expecting from a boy band? See, the problem here is that people try to apply the same standard to all music when really there's tons of different genres that all have different purposes. To illustrate this point a little bit further, I'm going to talk about genre in the context of literature. As you know, I'm an English major, and one of the first things we talk about when dissecting texts is the genre conventions and expectations. For example, if I'm analyzing a piece of Gothic literature, I need to look at the conventions of Gothic. What are some symbols that are commonly used, and what are aspects of this genre that are normal but may be problematic in a different type of text? The next step is to look at what the audience expects from this genre. What aspects do they expect to see and which ones will throw them off or confuse them? What morals or lessons do they expect to see in the text? In other words, what is the purpose that the audience attributes to this genre? So I'm not going to read a children's book and apply to it the same genre conventions and expectations that I would to a dark Gothic novel because they're two completely separate things. Misunderstanding of genre like this happens all the time with books. For example, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is often read as a romance when in fact Shakespeare intended it as a critical social commentary of the consequences of foolish adult actions and prejudices. People often dismiss Romeo and Juliet as a stupid romance and not the great work it is because they're looking for the wrong things out of it. This idea of genre convention and expectation can be applied to music as well. People need to realize that instead of applying a blanket statement to all genres, different types of music have different characteristics and are trying to achieve different results. Let's compare and contrast a pop group like One Direction with, say, more of an indie group like Bastille. The conventions of pop groups like One Direction are normally that they're cute teenage boys, they don't write their own lyrics, they have an over-enthusiastic teenage girl following, and their songs usually have pretty surface-level lyrics, and they're meant more for catchiness than depth. On the other hand, conventions of groups like Bastille are that they're usually mid-20s adults, they write their own songs, and that their lyrics usually can be analyzed on a deeper level because they have more thought put into them. Because of the difference in conventions of these groups, obviously the expectations for them are going to be different. The expectation of pop groups is that they should provide fun, catchy songs that lift your spirit and are enjoyable. The expectation of indie groups is that they provide meaningful, intellectual lyrics with a certain degree of maturity. The problem that most people have with groups like One Direction is that they are trying to apply the wrong set of conventions and expectations. And so they focus on all the things that One Direction are doing wrong instead of looking at what they're doing right. In my opinion, One Direction is doing a phenomenal job of fulfilling all of their expectations. I'm able to enjoy listening to their music because I'm not expecting them to give me this religious listening experience. I just want to be entertained. What happens when you don't take genre into account, however, is you get two extreme ends of a spectrum. On the one side, you have the superfans, the Directioners, who pretend that One Direction have the same artistic and writing capabilities as other bands. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the music snobs who hate on One Direction and One Direction's fans mercilessly because they're not at that same artistic level as other bands. Both of these groups are at these points because they are expecting way too much out of a pop band. And let me just say something really quickly to the music snobs. You hate One Direction for the same misplaced reasons that the superfans love them. You are just as deluded as they are. How about you take that hatred you feel in your heart and you just focus instead on a band you actually like? How about you just leave everybody else alone and stop being a douchebag? So that's pretty much all I've got, Victoria. Thank you for listening through this big rant that I had, but I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this because I think that you have great taste in music and I know that you love music, and so I want to know what your opinion is on pop bands like One Direction and the Jonas Brothers because we used to love them too. So I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon. P.S. If we end up continuing with these video things, I probably should invest in a tripod because this contraption took me like 40 minutes to set up so that I could see where I was in the frame, and it didn't work very well. Okay, just wanted to show you that because it's super pathetic. I love you, bye.